Welcome back. We are going to continue talking about integrality results and building towards the definition of total dual integrality, which we'll be using in subsequent lectures. So let's briefly, for continuity, just state this intermediate result that we had from the previous lecture, where we had the following. If we have a polytope, and again, if I fail to say this, it's always implied that A and B are rational. Everything I write down where it's my choice, not a derived quantity. For a derived quantity, we need to prove that it's rational. But for anything that specifies a problem, we're going to assume that it is rational. Because any kind of polynomial computation type result that we're going to use subsequently is a polynomial in the description length. So that essentially implies that we're dealing with just rational numbers. So we said that so again, let me mention, A and B are rational. Again, some abusive notation here. I guess I should write A, IJ, and BI is rational, but hopefully it's clear. It's clear what I mean. And note that whenever you have a quantity like this that you can scale both sides, we can always just assume that in fact, these entries are integral. So the theorem says that a polytope defined in this way is integral, meaning has integral vertices. And I should specify when I say has integral vertices, I mean has all integral or only integral vertices if and only if each rational supporting hyperplane contains some integral vector. Contains an integral vector. Again, as we mentioned last time, one direction of the proof is obvious, and always, this represents a result that hopefully will be useful because it appears to be weaker than the condition that each rational supporting hyperplane contains an integral vector appears to be weaker than the original condition that our polytope has integral vertices. So this direction is obvious, and then we worked on proving this direction. So this was the last lecture. And again, the benefit of it is that now if you want to show that P is integral, you just have to show that each rational supporting hyperplane contains an integral vector. Okay, so now let's move on and give a different integrality result. So this says the following. Again, if I have rational data, A, B are rational. And now I look at the following optimization problem. Max of C transpose X subject to AX less than B. And now the theorem says, suppose that this optimization problem has an integral value. So suppose, let me just say, so fix A and B if this optimization problem has an integral optimal value for every C integral. Then AX less than B is integral, meaning it has integral vertices. And let me just note that I didn't even write the converse here because that is obvious. So, so in other words, AX less than B integral implies the assumption is obvious. if you have an integral polytope and you're maximizing an integral vector, then we know that C transpose X is just going to be the sum of multiples of integers. So of course that's going to be integral. So we need to show, in other words, only the direction that I wrote. That's the only interesting one. Okay, so now let's start with taking a supporting hyperplane. So let's let H be of the form C transpose X is equal to delta, and let's let this be a rational supporting hyperplane. And note here that without loss of generality, because again it's an equality, I'm assuming C and delta are rational. That's my only assumption. I can scale this until C has relatively prime integers as values. Again, the relative, so I'm not just clearing the denominator. I'm assuming that they're relatively prime, and that's just because if C contains the vectors 2 and 4, I'm only requiring that delta is rational, so I can always scale down. So in other words, without loss of generality, I can assume that C is integral with relatively prime entries. They can be equal, so that's fine, but you can't have 2, 4, 8 to be the and again the point is that we don't need to. If we had 2, 4, 8, we just divide everything by 2, divide delta by 2. That's still going to be rational, and I have now relatively prime, and not pairwise relatively prime. Okay, so now what do we need to do? By the previous theorem on the previous slide, and also the theorem that we finished the last lecture with, what we need to do is we need to show, so it's enough to show, thanks to the previous theorem, that H contains an integral vector. So this is the benefit of the previous theorem. I now have an entire hyperplane, and I just need to show that it must contain just a single integral vector. So again, what is if H is supporting? If it's a supporting hyperplane, what does that mean? That is equivalent to writing that H intersect P is all of the maximizing vectors of C transpose X subject to X in P. And you can see the picture here. So if this is P, what does it mean for H to be supporting? Well, it can't slice through. That's obviously not supporting. So it needs to either be something like this or something like this, and in either case, H is a supporting hyperplane if and only if it is the argmax of some vector C. So what does that mean? Now we can use the assumption of the theorem. The assumption of the theorem says that max C transpose X, X in P, is integral. So therefore, what do we conclude? We conclude that delta has to be integral. But we didn't start with that assumption. Okay, so we took any hyperplane that's supporting, and in fact we scaled it in our own way. We scaled it in order to accomplish what we wanted. But this says that delta is in fact integral. So delta is integral, and what does that mean? So now let's look at, so what do we want to conclude? We want to conclude that H contains an integral point, and then we basically get this by relative prime, by the fact that, that the entries of C are integral and relatively prime. H is equal to all x such that C transpose x equals delta must have an integral solution, since the vector C is integral by assumption and relatively prime, and delta is integral. And that is the result. And so you see how we were able to leverage the flexibility of the previous theorem. Okay, so let's just recap why this is important. This says that if just the optimal value is integral, it guarantees us that every single extreme point is integral. And note again, this isn't completely obvious because I didn't say for every C. Obviously, it's not even true for every C or every C rational. It's not a result saying that if you end up, if for every C, for every direction, if the optimal solution is an integral vertex, then the whole thing is integral. That's completely obvious. This is saying that for any objective function that's integral, if you get an integral value, then that is a sufficient condition to guarantee that every single extreme point has to be integral. So this is basically what allows us to define total dual integrality. So so what do we have? So as a conclusion of the previous result, we know that, I'm just writing what I just said, if max C transpose X subject to AX less than B has an integral optimal value for every integral C, then all vertices are integral. Okay, that's what this result says. And now let's think about it, and then in particular, what does it say? And this is going to be the connection with duality. So in particular, if the dual of this problem, which is minimize Y transpose B subject to Y transpose A equals C, C transpose, and Y non-negative, if this has an integral solution for every integral C, then the primal polytope is integral. So in particular, if this optimization problem has an integral, and note here what I'm doing. I'm not going to say value, crossing that out. I'm actually saying solution. And that's why I'm writing in particular. This is a specialization. It's perhaps a tad weaker than the statement that's written at the top of the page. It's saying that if the dual has an integral solution, not just integral value, for every integral C for which the min is finite, because we can't rule out a priori that the primal problem is infeasible. Again, we know that the min is going to be finite as long as the primal is feasible. Then the primal polytope is integral. And this leads to our definition of total dual integrality. And it is a property of A and B. It's not a property of C, since there is something that is required to hold for all C. So A and B are called TDI, totally dual integral. Or you could say it's a TDI system, or A and B are TDI, if Basically, the above holds, but let me just write it out again since it's to make this definition. So if max C transpose X subject to AX less than B, if this equals min Y transpose B subject to Y transpose A equals C transpose Y non-negative, if this has an integral solution, I should say if the dual of this, which is this, has an integral solution for any C integral, again, for which strong duality holds, so for which the right-hand side is finite. So this is the definition of total dual integrality. And we're going to be using this property, but in the next lecture, I want to show you a few examples of this and also talk about how this is a property not of the polytope, but of the representation itself. So we're going to stop here and then and pick that up in the next lecture.